every neighborhood has a heartbeat, a place that represents the cultural epicenter of the area at its core. And in Boston's historic North End, that place is Boston Barber and Tattoo Company. Boston Barber and Tattoo Company has become home to A-list Boston celebrities like Gordon Hayward, Milan Lucic, Brad Marchand, Aaron Baines. Boston Barber and Tattoo Company is more than just Boston's most well-known corner barbershop. It's also a tourist attraction to the hundreds of thousands of people that visit the North End throughout the year. And they have a cappuccino bar and back. Check it out. It's awesome. Go down there, 113 Salem Street in the North End, and that's Boston Barber and Tattoo Company.
Welcome to another edition of the Good and Plenty podcast. I am your host, Jeff Goodman, and we've got a great show for you today. We haven't really done a whole lot with the NBA draft, so I'm going to bring on a good buddy of mine, somebody who follows the draft like no other, and that is the athletic Sam Vecenie. And we will talk plenty about the draft, all the top prospects. We'll go Zion. We'll go the biggest risks. We'll talk about Cam Reddish. Will the Duke trio go 1, 2, and 3? Today's show is brought to you by Robinhood. Go to plenty.com Robinhood and get a free stock when you sign up. Today's show also brought to you by Mint Mobile. Get 3 months of wireless for $20 shipped to your door for free by going to mintmobile.com/good. Remember, please subscribe to the podcast. You can do that wherever you listen to your podcast, iTunes, Stitcher. You can find us in CLNS Media. You can find me on Twitter at Goodman Hoops, also at Watch Stadium. Please give us your reviews. They are definitely helpful. Remember, every Tuesday and Thursday, Good and Plenty comes to you from wherever the hell I am at that point. Right now I'm actually home, which is kind of nice. Now pleased to welcome in a podcast expert. He hosts his own podcast. He works for The Athletic. He does college. He does NBA. He does recruiting, a little bit of everything. Sam Vecenie. We're going to talk mostly, Sam, I think, about NBA draft in this pod because I think that's your bread and butter. And I want to start. Let's start with Duke. Let's jump right into this and start with Duke because they just lost a key piece last night. Tre Jones is out. We don't know how long with a shoulder injury. How much do you think this affects Duke? And number two, can Cam Reddish and RJ Barrett, can they kind of hold down the fort from a point guard perspective until Tre gets back?
So it definitely affects Duke, I think, more on the defensive end than on the offensive end. The reason that I say that is because Tre is so important at just keying their point of attack defense. He is a terrific pressure defender. And the offense, I think, can figure itself out. Like Cam Reddish in high school, this is something I keep telling people. Cam Reddish was not a spot shooter in high school. He was a point forward who would grab and go on the break, who would do stuff that he did against Florida State, right? Whenever Zion Williamson went out. That was more his role in high school than it was this spot shooter, attack closeouts kind of guy. So it wouldn't surprise me to see him play a little bit of lead. I would imagine that RJ Barrett's probably going to play a lot of lead. But I will say this. I think that Tre Jones was maybe the guy that they could least afford to lose, if only because of the lack of point guard depth. That is a real concern. Jordan Goldwire is their backup point guard.
Come on, you don't like Jordan Goldwire? He was recruited by Eastern Kentucky. They were all over.
I know, and that was a Dan McHale special.
Yes.
They probably, maybe you should have ended up with Dan McHale. Look, RJ is going to be fine playing the point. In college, it's going to be totally okay. I would imagine that's probably what they do. He'll share the responsibilities across the board. But the defense, I think, is going to suffer. And, Tre just did such a good job getting everyone involved. I think that's the biggest worry right now. How many mouths get fed on a night-to-night basis without Tre Jones?
Am I crazy to think that if Tre is back 100% in a month, all right, and we don't know yet. We don't know if this is a 2-3 week injury. This could be a 6-week injury that, he comes back. Who knows how severe it is right now.
indefinite has been so long term in the case of Duke, because if you remember, Grayson Allen was indefinitely suspended. So
that was a lengthy one. Come on, that was a one gamer over December break.
So literally, when Duke says indefinite, we have no idea what it means.
No idea. But again, let's play the game of it's a month even. Okay, let's play the game that he gets back February 10th-ish, somewhere around there. And he's good to go. And obviously he's a cerebral kid who's already played, half the season. So he knows the offense, all that. Could this help Duke in a sense that Cam Reddish gets his swagger back, plays some point, which he did in high school. I mean, he was their point guard, primary point guard at Westtown. So he's got ball skills. And he and RJ, like you said, either one of them can make plays for other people. I actually think Cam is probably better on the ball, and you keep RJ off the ball and let him kind of play in attack mode, and I think they'll be just fine. But, yeah, the defense is going to take a huge hit, no doubt about it. But offensively, could this help them? Because it forces Reddish to be more of a guy, which he needs. And he's done a great job of, honestly, not complaining publicly. You've heard nothing from his camp, nothing at all. And if I were him, I'd kind of be pissed a little bit, because this is a kid who's got as much upside as any of those three and committed before Zion. And then when Zion committed at the end, and he was the fourth of the four to do so, it really, the person it affected the most was Cam Reddish.
Yeah, I mean, Cam was Tre committed first, and then Cam assumed he was going to be like the next in line of these small ball fours at Duke, like Jabari Parker, like Jason Tatum, like Brandon Ingram, like Justice Winslow. We even played the small ball four at Duke. It's just been a factory for one and done players for so long that, when Cam, I'm sure Cam wasn't upset that Zion committed, right? Like, it seems like everyone on that team has a really good relationship with one another, at least. So, like, I'm not sitting here saying, like, Cam Reddish was probably like, oh, he's so mad at, like, Zion. I think he was probably a little bit upset at the situation, though. Like, his playing time, his role, everything changed. Right. Yeah.
One of those where, like, just shock of, wait, I thought it was just going to be me, Tre, and RJ, and maybe they'd add another guy, but it wouldn't be, another versatile, type of forward. And honestly, listen, I really thought Zion would end up playing like the 5 for Duke at the end of the day this year. I didn't realize he had these ball skills, and he could pass it as well as he could. Listen, I'll count myself one of those who was off on Zion, and I was, I didn't think he had any shot at being the number 1 overall pick. And now I think it's maybe not a lock, but damn close to it. Where do you stand on that?
So yeah, I thought Zion would play the 5 this year. Even as someone who did think he had the ball skills, I just thought that K would play their 5 best players, right? Like, their 5 best have size. They have enough skill. They have everything that you're looking for in a starting 5 typically. I thought that 5 would probably include Alex O'Connell is their 5th because of the shooting. In the end, it's been Jack White, actually, who has been their 5th best guy. If you look through, guess how many possessions the Reddish, Williamson, Barrett, Tre Jones, Jack White lineup has played this year together?
I mean, the bulk. Right?
No. Like those five
together. Oh, with all 5, because White comes in for one of those guys.
Right. So, like, the 4 freshmen and Jack White. Yep. Guess how many possessions they've played together this year?
Percentage?
No, just number of possessions.
How many? Go ahead. How many?
25 the entire year.
Wow.
Duke has played almost 800 possessions this year, and the number of possessions that they have played their 5 best players is 25.
So most of it's been with Bolden or Delorier and those 4 freshmen.
Exactly right. So I don't really understand why K is doing that. Maybe he's just waiting until later to bust it out and give teams kind of a different look. In all honesty, I don't really think that the regular season matters all that much for this Duke team, right?
Nobody's going to remember, other than the Zion highlight show and ESPN, blowing up Duke and Zion and everything like that, and rightfully so. Listen, I used to work there. They did it with Ben Simmons a couple years ago. when Tre Young caught on last year, they did it with him. Zion obviously is at a different level because not only is he Zion, where if he was at LSU or Oklahoma, you blow him up, but now you put Zion at Duke, and it's like, the double dip, and you just pound people with Zion and the ratings and everything like that. I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all. I would do the same thing if I were running ESPN. I'd get him on as much as possible because people want to see him. People want to see him. Kids want to see him, and people my age want to see him. So it's like everybody wants to watch the Zion show because nobody's seen anything like him before. Your boy Jimmy Boeheim compared him to Charles Barkley, and the only thing I see in common with those two, Sam, is the body build as much as anything, and the fact that they both are good rebounders. They play hard. They're undersized guys, but they're totally different in kind of how they do it. I mean, Zion's super explosive. Chuck just kind of worked angles. Now, he was more explosive than people realize, but Zion's just the freak of freaks. I mean, that's what I call him. He's the freak of freaks.
So, like, when Charles Barkley was in his prime, like, he was listed at like 240, 250 pounds, which for a guy that was like 6'5" or so, like something in that range, like that's a big guy, right? Yes. Zion's like 30 pounds heavier than Charles Barkley was.
Right.
The thing that I keep saying that I don't think people have like comprehended yet is that if you look up and down the NBA rosters right now and sort by weight, Zion Williamson would be the second heaviest player in the NBA behind Boban right now.
That's insane.
That's where we're at with Zion being like as heavy and as powerful and as physical as he is, as well as being able to leap 45 inches off the ground and throw down these insane dunks. He is genuinely a one of a kind, in the same way that LeBron was a one of a kind, in the same way that Magic Johnson was a one of a kind. I'm not comparing Zion's talent to those guys. I'm saying that in terms of, what his comparison is, I don't really think there is one. I think he is just genuinely his own person. And like, if you notice, LeBron, Magic, these guys all go by one name. It's going to be Zion. It's just going to be a one name deal.
Now, the question I have for you is, what do you think Zion is at the next level? What do you think he is? If we're talking about Zion Williamson in 10 years, what do you think we're talking about?
So I think that he is a playmaking four. Like, I just think that's the easiest fit, right? Like, say he goes to the Knicks, he slots right in next to Kristaps Porzingis, and there are no issues, right? Like, say he goes to Atlanta, he slots into next to John Collins, and I think that works really well. Say he goes to Chicago, he slots right in next to Lauri Markkanen, and that's not a problem. I think they would trade one of Wendell Carter, Lowry to make it work and facilitate it, because I think that you want to play him as a big man. But, it's just a very tailor-made fit. Play him in Phoenix. He just slides right in next to DeAndre Ayton is there for. I think that that's the place that I want him to go most, to be honest, is Phoenix, because I think that would be incredibly fun.
Yeah.
It would make him relevant. He'd be playing in a scheme that really makes sense. He'd be playing with a core that complements his skills. It would be so much fun. I mean, in terms of what he does on the floor, he can really pass it. He can just create plays. Like, he jump stops like 8 feet. No one in basketball has really ever seen that, right? Like,
I love his quick twitch, Sam. I love how quick twitch he is. Like in the Syracuse zone last night, gets the ball and he makes decisions so quickly. And I think that's the part that I guess has impressed me maybe the most is how cerebral he is. Like, he's a much smarter basketball player than we all gave him credit for. And again, it goes into the passing ability, the court vision, everything like that. But even the decision making and how quickly he's able to make quality decisions. And obviously part of it is he's able to get away with making some poor decisions at times because of how big, strong, and athletic he is. But against that Syracuse zone, he just tore it apart last night.
Yeah, no question. And, he was always a really good, underrated ball handler and passer, I thought, coming out of high school. He could grab and go on the break. He could really throw very creative passes. He could always kind of make moves in the open floor. I did question a little bit what his half court handle would look like. I think that Cam Reddish got a lot of credit for being able to handle the ball. He probably got more credit than Zion did for being able to handle the ball. I would say that Zion is a better ball handler than Cam Reddish because he has a tighter handle.
Do we
he can
know
maneuver in small spaces.
All right, but my question is, do we know yet? Have we given Cam Reddish an opportunity to be comfortable in this offense? No.
So that's a good question. No, we haven't. But in the opportunities that he's gotten as well, I think it's worth saying Cam Reddish hasn't been incredible by any stretch.
Nope.
He has an 18% turnover rate or something like that right now. He has struggled handling the ball and turning it over and getting stripped and making questionable decisions, right? And it's a different scheme than he's used to. There are excuses for it. And look, I'm not blaming Cam. I do think that there is something to the adjustment that it takes. But also, he hasn't taken advantage in the way that you would have hoped playing this limited role either.
I just wonder if he went somewhere that he was the guy and they said, all right, you know what? We're going to give you the ball and let you play through it. And you're going to make some mistakes. But at this point in the season, you're going to be a lot further along rather than being kind of an ancillary role, a supporting actor, so to speak. I just wonder, again, if we wouldn't be looking at a guy right now who's averaging 20 points, 5 assists, and 7 or 8 rebounds, and we'd be talking about him in the National Player of the Year conversation. I think maybe he would.
See, I think that's totally possible. But you kind of go to the downside of Cam Reddish here too, right? He's a guy that certainly has his issues with playing consistently hard, playing with a high motor regularly. So if he goes to a situation like Markelle Fultz at Washington, like Ben Simmons at LSU, does it exacerbate some of the worst tendencies that Reddish can have? I think that's a real question. I do think there's a chance he would average 28 and 5 somewhere because he's an incredible player. But I do kind of like the idea
of Villanova
playing
right now. How about this? Put him at Villanova today, this year, with that Villanova group. How much better would they be, and how much better would he be playing at Villanova this year, which was one of his final, he grew up.
Yeah.
He played at Westtown, which was not far from Villanova.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say that he'd be a great fit there in terms of skill. He'd be a great fit there in terms of they just need someone who can create plays realistically for them. Their biggest problem is point guard play right now. So maybe you give Cam the ball and just kind of let him do his thing. I don't know.
Interesting.
I think that'd be fine.
Yeah, I would have just loved to have seen it. I just feel like, and we're going to get into this now. I want to get into this because we can come off of. Go ahead.
Can we hold real quick? Because you asked earlier, and I was going to come back to this. Zion is Zion the number one pick?
Yep.
And I think that that's kind of worth just going into now before we move on.
Yep.
I would say that yes, right now at this moment, he is very clearly the number one overall pick. The only thing that I will mention with Zion, and this is something that I've continued to mention in the wide variety of platforms that I use.
Yep.
The injury in medical report stage of this is going to be very interesting because Zion, to my knowledge, has never had a serious injury, but he continues to kind of accumulate these, random little injuries, right? He missed part of last season with a foot injury, if I remember correctly, 3 weeks or so.
Yep.
He had a knee injury, I want to say, when he was a junior or a sophomore that held him out for just a couple of weeks again. And, he hurt his thumb just landing hard at McDonald's. And that's something
so
you have
hard.
to be
He
concerned,
plays hard, man.
Right? Plays hard, has the crazy athleticism. He's just going to take hits, right? The game against Florida State gets the eye poke, and this is the rest of the game. That one's not a serious one, but he does kind of continue to accumulate these things, and you do have to wonder, hopefully the medical report comes back clean and it's just a clear deal that he goes number one. That's what I'm rooting for. I think that's what everyone is rooting for. Even if it doesn't come back clean, I still think there's a chance he goes number one because of the marketing pitch, because of the ownership questions, like everything like that.
If you're an owner, right? If you're an owner, do you want your GM to pass on Zion Williamson when you ask them, okay, who's the number one pick? And they say, well, it might be RJ, it might be Zion. This isn't a great top of the draft. And then your owner just says to you, well, if you're not sure about it, take Zion for damn sake, because we're going to make a lot of money here.
Right. In terms of talent, I think he's a no-brainer, number one. I think he is he's not Anthony Davis level in terms of talent. Like, I think he's a level below that. But I think he is just the level below that. Like, he's not I think he's better than like the John Wall, the Kyrie Irvings,
You do? Really?
I do. Yeah.
You think he's a step above Kyrie and John Wall? Why? Why?
His prospects, because Kyrie missed a lot of time. Obviously, he had a great 7 games, but you go back, there were like questions about whether or not Kyrie was the number one pick or if Derek Williams was the number one pick, right? Like,
think of how insane that is. You're saying that right now. Think of how crazy that is.
I know, and it would have gone poorly.
Oh.
It was kind of, but that was a debate at the time. Like, I'm not making that up. You look at 2013 or 2012 was Anthony Davis. 2013 was like the terrible Anthony Bennett draft or whatever. 2010 was John Wall. 2009 was Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin was coming off of like a National Player of the Year campaign as a sophomore. Was expected to do great things. Was very clearly the number one pick in a draft with like James Harden and Stephen Curry.
I like
and all
the Zion here. I like the Zion Blake Griffin. Like, I would put them on the same level and similar players, right? Similar players. Blake obviously was a freak athlete at the time. Couldn't really shoot it from more than, I've joked with him about it. Couldn't shoot from more than mid-range. Most of the stuff he did. But I would kind of put them as similar in terms of like number one overall picks and kind of where they're at. And they still have.
So I think Zion's a little ahead of that because I think he's a little ahead skill-wise of where Blake is.
Agreed.
Like, it's easy to like think of where Blake is now, shooting 6 threes a game and kind of doing everything that he does now and creating with the ball in his hand. He didn't really do that at Oklahoma. I don't think he's Greg Oden, Kevin Durant level necessarily either. Like, both of those guys were incredible in terms of prospects, at least. I'm trying to think who is 2014. Who am I missing?
Who was 2014?
Wiggins. I think he's probably a level ahead of Wiggins.
I would say
he's questions at that stage.
Yeah, I always question the biggest thing here. Here's what I love about Zion. I don't question how hard he's going to play. I know he's going to play hard. I don't question his attitude and the fact that I think players love playing with him, which I'm not sure you could say that about RJ Barrett right now. Like, and NBA guys too. NBA guys love Zion. When they watch practice, they say that all the other guys on the team gravitate towards Zion. And then you'll see RJ down the other end, kind of on his own. And they do worry about RJ and his body language. And we haven't really gotten in RJ much here, but I think they're kind of opposite in terms of right now. You see Zion, you see that smile, where RJ has kind of got that professional approach in everything he does. Today's show is brought to you by Robinhood. It's never a bad time to start thinking about your investment portfolio. Whether you're looking to buy or sell stocks, crypto, ETFs, make sure you sign up for Robinhood. I know markets can be complicated, but Robinhood makes everything easy for you. Robinhood is going to build you your own customized newsfeed right when you sign up. They sort certain stocks for you in different collections, like 100 most popular, social media, or pharmaceutical. You'll learn more about it as you go along. Get started today. Sign up, extremely easy. All it takes is 4 taps on your phone to start trading. Best part is, Robinhood doesn't charge commission fees. You keep all your profits. Robinhood is giving listeners a free stock like Apple, Ford, or Sprint to help build your portfolio. Sign up, plenty.com, Robinhood.com. That's plenty.robinhood.com. Everything.
RJ looks like a dour, like, king in, like, 18th century England. Like, every time he plays to me. Like, it's just like straight face. I don't know that I've seen him.
Emotion. Yeah, he'll have the mean mug. He'll have the mean mug a few times a game. And that's about it. Again, I don't know. I don't think he's a bad teammate or anything like that. I just think a lot of the NBA guys, again, that's been the big question for him. His body language. Do his teammates really love him or not? Where Zion, they don't question any of that. The biggest thing they question with Zion is something you kind of alluded to earlier, was the weight that he's carrying and how that's going to affect him long-term potentially in the NBA if he can play the style and the way and the reckless abandon that he plays with that body frame and that athleticism and sustain it without suffering a major injury. That's their biggest question with Zion right now.
Yeah, for sure. And, I look at it this way. This was kind of, brought up to me by an executive, with Zion, he's going to enter the NBA he's going to play his full rookie season at 19. He's going to play his rookie contract at 20, 21, and 20, or 19, 20, 21, and 22. You get the second contract, right, because you have restricted free agency rights. So you're talking 23, 24, 25, 26 probably, because you'll probably give him an opt-out. So you really, in terms of what your value is, selecting him at number 1 overall, you're getting him realistically for 8 years probably, right? So he has to get to 26 years old before his body starts to slow down and starts to break down and, everything like that. Maybe a big injury befalls him. And that's something that, they'll do medical reporting to see if they can account for that. But right now, I don't know that you can really worry about the injury stuff, the just chronic injury stuff coming up, because you're only going to have him until he's 26 years old. And you have to assume that his body is going to hold up. Yeah. In terms of chronic stuff through 26 years old.
So you have, I think, the same top 3 that I do, which is a Duke trio. As far as your last mock draft, I don't know if you've done one since then, but
that's right. Yeah, I have those 3:
Zion, RJ, Cam. I'm the same way. I really think that's the way it plays out at the end of the day. I think the only one who can maybe crack it, and this sounds insane, is Ja Morant. I think he could crack it if the right team that needs a point guard badly says to themselves, you know what, Cam Reddish, Ja Morant, we need a high-level point guard. This kid's a freak athlete. He reminds us a little bit of Russell Westbrook. He's the new age point guard, great athlete, another gear, great kid, plays hard on the offensive end, still needs to play harder on the defensive end and shoot it better. But I could see maybe him going, he keeps moving up. I don't know if he cracks the top 3, but I wouldn't say it's out of the question that he could.
I think there are a few guys that are still in that mix. I think Nassir Little, if he ever starts to play, should probably be in that mix.
We should we should do a podcast just on Nassir Little's draft prospects. We could take 40 minutes just on that, couldn't we?
We really could. It's I wrote probably 1,300 words on it maybe 2 weeks ago, and I've podcasted about it. It's such a weird situation. Yes. I've probably podcasted 40 minutes about it already over the course of 3 podcasts. The guy that I keep getting told is sneaky interesting is Jarrett Culver at Texas Tech. It's just a perfect tailor-made fit for today's NBA, right? He doesn't have the upside of a Ja Morant. He doesn't have the upside of a Cam Reddish, but if the right team just doesn't necessarily trust Cam Reddish and does trust a guy like Jarrett Culver, who's a great kid, incredibly hard worker, has already gone about reshaping multiple parts of his game, is growing. He's at least gotten to 6'6". There is speculation that he might be a little bit higher. We'll see whether or not that's true. I could see Jarrett Culver sneaking in there. I really could.
Yeah, I talked to Culver actually for a while yesterday. You're right. I mean, a great kid
yeah.
who can guard, continues to get better kind of in every end. I mean, a Lubbock kid who decided to stay home and didn't even take another official visit when he was coming out of high school. Just committed to Chris Beard. Yeah.
The funny thing is he was a Texas fan growing up.
Yeah, he told me that. That's awesome. I know. He's I was wearing all my burnt orange and everything like that as a kid. And Chris Beard, I talked to him about it. He said, listen, the goal wasn't for Jarrett Culver to be a first-round pick. The goal was always for him to be a lottery pick. We didn't set the goals here at, making the NCAA tournament and him being a first-round pick. We sat it here, winning the Big 12, getting to a Final Four and him being a lottery pick and all of those things. I said, like, how crazy is it now that all those things are potentially like going to happen? And he's like, yeah, I mean, like, I don't even think about it like that, but yeah, everything that he told me was going to happen, Chris Beard, when he recruited me, it may happen. And I said that usually coaches are just bullshitting the hell out of you. And Beard's not a bullshitter. That's something he's not. And he's delivered. I mean, Chris Beard, this is not a college podcast today, but Chris Beard has been as impressive of a coaching job in the last year and a half of any coach in America, bar none.
Yeah, just straight up, I think he is a top 10 coach in the country. You watch what he runs, you watch how he identifies recruits, how he gets the most out of them, develops them. Yeah, I mean, like UCLA, I don't think the fit is there in terms of style. I think that they would go crazy watching his offense, but
it wouldn't be. Yeah, it'd be Ben Howland all over again, but with a better personality.
Yeah, Chris Beard's great. You wanted to do like
play a game. Yeah, I want to play a little game.
Yeah, you want to play a game. We should do that before we get out of here.
Yeah, let's play the game, because then off the game, we're going to end up going into some of these prospects that I think we may end up hitting on this year a little bit more. We'll see. The game is going to be the biggest risks of the NBA draft. And we're going to play it of kind of going back and forth and doing a little mini draft of either 2 apiece, 3 apiece. We'll see how deep we go here and how long it takes. I'm going to let you go first, and I hope you don't take my guy. Like, to me, the biggest risk of the NBA draft is so easy. I think you'll take him at the end of the day, because, like, it stands out to me that there's one above everybody else that's the biggest risk of the NBA draft. Go ahead. Give me your guy.
I think it's Bol Bol.
Yeah, you think? You think? Like it's like the biggest no-brainer of all, that Bol Bol is the biggest risk of the NBA draft. All right, what you can take the floor here, and I'll add in what you don't. I assume we agree on a lot of this.
So I'll talk about the on-the-floor stuff first.
Okay, right.
He is a trash defender. He is a genuinely bad defender in every way. Like, I wrote a bunch of stuff on him. You should go to The Athletic, check out what I wrote on Bol Bol. He is legit a bad defender.
It's hard to watch
right now.
Yeah.
it's really bad.
And
they had to start going to zone.
For people that don't know, he had season-ending or will have season-ending deal that he's done for the year, which probably it might help his draft prospects at the end of the day. We'll see. He was putting up numbers. Give him credit. He was putting up big numbers.
And this comes from someone too. Like, I think he is genuinely like a very real potential, like, top 5 center offensively in the NBA. If things like really broke right for him, he can handle the ball. Yep. He can shoot out to like 26 feet. He is a really, really special offensive prospect. I think the defense is so bad that, like, it made it to the point where I don't have him on the top 10 of my board, not accounting for the injury questions.
Yeah, it's really, like, I go back and forth on him. I say, like you did, like, he's skilled. I almost feel like he's like more of a face-up 4 because he's got no base whatsoever, and you can just, like, I could throw him around. Like, legitimately, I'm 210 pounds. I really feel like I could throw Bol Bol around. He's got no base whatsoever. Can't really go inside at the NBA level, but I think he could be a stretch 4, and he shoots it really well. Like, unlike his dad, who launched threes, but, it was ugly. Like, Bol Bol has a nice stroke, can shoot it, and defensively, like, in AAU, he was really good because he was so long, and guys physically couldn't manhandle him or didn't manhandle him like they would do in the NBA. So I think he would foul out within like 5 minutes, because guys would just go in at his chest, whoever it is, or put him in ball screens, and he just doesn't work through those very well. And then you got the off-the-court stuff, Sam. And the off-the-court stuff is kind of as questionable as some of the on-the-court issues that you mentioned, which is, does he love basketball? Does he play hard? How's his attitude? And the last few times I talked to him about his attitude, like, he's actually said, like, I know, I read it, I understand it, I got to be better about it. So, like, I guess that's a step, certainly, but, you got to also do it, and I'm not sure, again, that I'm with you. The more I think about it, the more I look at it, the more, if I'm an NBA general manager, and my job could be on the line, and I'm picking 5, 7, 10, even 14, I say to myself, I don't think I can pull the trigger on this dude. I just don't think I can do it. I think I'll let somebody else take him. Enough other teams have passed on him at this point right now. I won't get crucified if he becomes a really good player. But I think Bol Bol is either a good player in the league or out of the league in like 5 years.
That's funny because like I almost think that his role is like he can be Channing Frye as long as he's like a good dude that teammates want to have around basically forever, I think.
But Channing Frye was that. Channing Frye was that.
Yeah.
Bol Bol would have to prove that, and he's not there yet. He's not there.
In terms of skill, like that's who he is, I think. Just that he can handle the ball. Like he can actually just do a lot more than Channing Frye. But even if nothing else comes along, he's an elite shooter who can space the floor in an era where teams are looking for centers to space the floor. In terms of the off the floor stuff, I'll just add like a couple of things. The way it's been like kind of told to me is like he loves the culture of basketball, but the game, like there's a question there from scouts whether or not he's going to work as hard as he possibly can to improve his game. Right. Number two, I will add to this. I got pretty good reports from people who went up to Oregon and like saw him play and like saw it. It seemed to be going better than it was down here in Southern California. Like the last few people I talked to, they were like, yeah, it seems like it's going a little bit better up there. So, maybe it really is improving. I think it's worth noting that like that is a real positive thing in terms of the foot injury, navicular bone injury. There's a serious side to it. There's a serious navicular bone injury. There's a slightly less serious navicular bone injury. Joel Embiid had the serious kind.
Yep.
I don't remember many cases of the non-serious kind, but apparently that's what Bol has. Now, the information we have on this comes from his attorney. So there is a real interested party there to do this, right? Yep. Like to put out information.
Sure.
But, we'll see what comes of that yet. I just don't think we know enough.
Quick break to tell you today's show is also brought to you by Mint Mobile. Nothing better about the holiday season than unwrapping a brand new phone until you get hit with your brand new monthly bill. Big wireless providers can really suck the joy out of the holidays. So this year, don't just upgrade your phone. Upgrade your wireless provider and switch to Mint Mobile. For a limited time, Mint Mobile is offering the best holiday deal in wireless you've ever seen. 3 months of service for $20. Mint Mobile's holiday deal is only here for a limited time. $20 total. 3 months of wireless service with 5 gigabytes of 4G LTE data each month, plus unlimited talk and text. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan. You keep your old phone number along with all your existing contacts. Mint Mobile runs on the nation's fastest, most advanced LTE network. And if you're not 100% satisfied, Mint Mobile has you covered with their 7-day money-back guarantee. Take advantage of this Mint Mobile holiday deal before it's gone. 3 months of wireless for $20. Get the plan shipped to your door for free. Go to mintmobile.com/good. That's mintmobile.com/good. 3 months of service, $20. Mintmobile.com/good. All right, so biggest risk for me, I'll go with Nassir Little.
Okay.
Well, here's my take. I'll go with Nassir Little if you're drafting him you have him at number 4 right now.
I would not have him at number 4 for what it's worth right now.
Say that again? Yeah. You would not have him at 4?
I would not have him at 4 right now.
All right, so let's say even as a top 10 pick, all right?
Yeah, I would have him there.
Is Nassir Little risky? Well, he is based on what we've seen of him this year, which is he's not a good shooter. We know that from the perimeter. Defensively, he's been a mess, and he'll admit it. I've talked to him about it at length, and he's saying it's a really difficult adjustment for him, kind of keeping track of what's going on off the ball while worrying about his own man. He's never had to do this before. I think Nassir Little in time will get better in that regard. The biggest issue I have for him is if he's playing the 3 at the next level, is he going to be able to get by guys off the bounce? Now, in AAU, it's different. You're playing up and down. He looked great in all the all-star game settings and AAU ball because he's more powerful, more athletic, and skilled enough and can put on the floor, and he had that confidence. Right now, you can tell the confidence isn't there. He's settling for jumpers because he can't get by guys. If you play him at the 4 like Duke did with Winslow, I think that's the best way to get his confidence going And I think if you're Roy
Yep.
Williams, you do it anyway because you have Garrison Brooks at the 5. You might as well just play Luke May at the 5, play Nassir Little at the 4 where he's a mismatch. He gets his confidence up. You play your 5 best, most talented players, and maybe Nassir Little starts to find his stride. But, I worry about him because I just, Roy Williams isn't in this to lose games. If he felt like Nassir Little could help him, he'd play him 35 minutes right now. So obviously there are some issues, and maybe some of it is cerebral in terms of like picking stuff up defensively, which is what I think is part of the problem.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. He's been a problem off the ball defensively this year. He's been a problem in help defense this year. The shot, I still believe in the shot to come around. I know that the numbers aren't great right now. But this is a guy that could really shoot it off the bounce in high school. His mechanics, he has a very nice high release point. I think he's going to be able to do that at some point. I just kind of believe in it. In terms of like his athleticism and being able to beat guys off the dribble, I think he's like a little heavy right now. And I don't mean that like he's out of shape. I think he's really in shape. I think that he might have like tried to pack on a little bit of weight and a little bit of power to adjust to college basketball. And I think that it's hindered his movement skills a little bit. He's not as explosive, I think, as what he was in high school.
No, I would agree with that. I mean, 6 for 29 from 3, shooting 21%, averaging playing about 20 minutes a game. And, he'll show flashes, but man, like it'd be hard. It'd be hard for me again as an NBA GM looking at it and saying like, I'm going to take him with the 4th overall pick ahead of Ja Morant, ahead of Romeo Langford, ahead of a lot of these guys that have Keldon Johnson, Kevin Porter, guys that have produced when he can't really fill a major role for Carolina. And it doesn't look like anything's going to change unless there's an injury for Roy Williams.
And by the way, you mentioned Kevin Porter there, correct?
Yeah.
That's my next pick.
All right. Good transition. Why?
That's my next pick. So if you look at what he's actually done this year, right? Like
he's
look at the highlights.
Picked up a lot of splinters.
Yeah. Don't look at the highlight tapes. Don't look at anything that is just like 30-second clips of what he's done this year. He's played 7 games. He's averaging 10 points in 22 minutes a night. He's averaging 3.4 rebounds, 1.7 assists. He's shooting 34% from 3. He's shooting 53% from the line. Like, I think people think he's a better shooter than what he is. Like, this jump shot has always been the real kind of question with him. Like, this is like something I said on my podcast. The line between Nick Young and like James Harden is smaller than you would think it is, right? Like, Nick Young can get separation, and Nick Young, he can't get separation like James Harden, no question. Don't get me wrong here. And he can't take pull-ups like James Harden can. But he can get separation, he can get open looks. It's just that he's not as efficient knocking down those open looks, and he's not as efficient at drawing fouls. In Kevin Porter's case, he's averaging under 2 free throw attempts a game. Like, he's shooting somewhat poorly from the field. It's a real question in terms of the on-the-floor transition. He is an incredibly interesting prospect in terms of just talent, but it's the consistency night in, night out that's a real question for me. And that's before we get to the off-the-floor stuff.
Which is what, Sam? Because you know this better than I do, some of the off-the-court stuff with him.
I do. Some NBA teams are a bit hesitant in terms of his I guess like work ethic is a good way to put it. Like he hasn't, from what I understand, he hasn't really been late to anything at USC. He hasn't like not shown up to anything, but he's not a guy that'll like really like be in the gym constantly, and
he's been suspended, Sam. Listen, by Andy Enfield, who's pretty loose in running the ship there. He's been suspended indefinitely now. And there's some thought that he may not play again for USC. Now, there was some thought before all this that he wasn't going to come back, and I tweeted out the speculation. He did come back for a game against Oregon State, that he was going to be shut down, that an agent had advised him, hey, listen, you've done enough. You're going to be a lottery pick. Shut it down. You go through whatever workouts we want to put you through eventually. And I don't think he's signed with an agent, but that doesn't mean shit these days. I mean, you can obviously have relationships, and plenty of guys are already accounted for by agents. I'm not saying Kevin Porter is that. But again, there was some speculation there he wasn't going to come back this year. He comes back for a game. Something happens between the Oregon State game and the Oregon game. He's suspended indefinitely, and we don't know if we will see Kevin Porter again on the court for USC.
So I will say this. I was never of the mind that Kevin would not play again this year. Like, I've talked to him. He actually did want to get back on the floor. Like the Nevada game, for instance, from what I understand, the reason he went into the Nevada game while he was dealing with that injury, his mom was in the stands and wanted to play in front of his mom, right? Like, that's a reasonable thing to want to do. She came down from the Pacific Northwest and, he really wanted to try and get in the game for her. He thought he could play. It just wasn't working. Right. Like he really, like Andy Enfield, they go down by 13 after a good first half. And Andy was like, do you really think you're good? And, Kevin said, yes, he put him in. It didn't work. Right. In terms of the injury, I never really bought that he was done. I think that it was NBA folks speculating just because of a lack of information on the situation. Right. You talk to him. He really wanted to play. Obviously USC really wanted him on the floor. And his draft stock is more tenuous than what I think people realize just because of all of the things that I said at the top about his on the floor stuff. Right. Like this is not like a surefire top 10 pick, in my opinion.
And a lot of NBA guys have told me they think he is just by default because it's a weak draft, because he is. He looks the part. He looks the part, and if he makes shots,
no question.
If he makes shots in a workout, some NBA GMs, the red flags don't matter as much to others. So
right.
I think there'll be an NBA GM that takes Kevin Porter in the top 10 this year in this year's draft, which is weak. All right, let's go one more without expanding that much. Let's do one more piece on biggest risk. I got to do my. Well, I'll do my last.
You got one.
I'll do my last.
Yeah,
one.
You got one.
Lou Dort, who I love. Like, I was on the Lou Dort bandwagon, and I still am. Arizona State freshman from Canada, plays his ass off. Kind of a Marcus Smart type of game in terms of big, strong, physical power guard. Not a point, not really a two. Shot it well early. The shot has kind of fallen off, as has Arizona State over the last, couple weeks or so. I like Lou Dort. But I want to like him in a year in the NBA draft. I hope he does not come out this year. I don't think he's ready. I think he still needs to learn decision-making, get that shot better, and then I think he can stay in the league a long time and be a lock first-round pick. I don't think he's a lock first-round pick now, not this year.
So I do think he would go in the first round. Do you think of him as a point or as an off-ball?
What's Marcus Smart to you? I guess he's a point.
So like the thing with Dort to me is like, I think he's kind of like Marcus Smart without the ball handle or without the passing ability, right? Like part of what makes Marcus
Smart
so good is he can make plays for others.
Yeah, but he wasn't that back then. He really wasn't. He was more of a scorer, like just an intangible guy.
I don't know that I agree with that. Like Marcus Smart averaged like 6 assists a game, if I remember correctly, that last year at, or maybe it was 5. His 5 assists a game at Oklahoma State his last year. Like Dort doesn't really have that ability, right? He is a driver, scorer.
He leaves his feet on too many passes.
Consistently.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Like Smart was probably more point than Dort.
Yeah.
But Marcus Smart is hardly a point guard. Still.
Right. But I think that's the comparison is like Marcus Smart without the passing ability.
Yep.
And that's like a real skill for Marcus to make value on the offensive end. I do think that part of Dort's inefficiency comes from being the number one option on a team. If you would put him on, let's say you put him on Michigan, for instance, and you can play him next to like Jordan Poole and Xavier Simpson or something where he doesn't have to have such a creative burden on his shoulders. You put him on Virginia. Oh my God, that would be awesome. Watching him defend on ball in Virginia scheme. But you put him next to Ty Jerome. You put him next to DeAndre Hunter, next to Kyle Guy. I think his numbers look better. I think he's just relied upon a little bit too much right now to be able to score when his skill set is more terrific on ball defense, advantage scorer who can get the ball off ball and drive on anyone, finish at the rim, go to the foul line, and knock down the occasional open jumper.
All right, last one before I let you go. The guy that people do not have listed, and even you can have.
I love
him.
this question.
Yeah, the guy who nobody really has listed, or not a lot of people have listed right now in the mocks, is going in the first round. That's going to go in the first round. At the end of the day, is who?
Jordan Poole at Michigan.
Ooh, yeah, I like that one. Yeah,
Jordan
I could
Poole
see that. He's got the length.
Awesome.
He can shoot it. Yeah. And you're right. He's not in a lot of people's first rounds.
So over Jordan Poole's last 11 games, he is averaging 16 points, 3 assists, 2.5 assists, 3 rebounds on 49% from 3 and 54% from the field.
He can shoot it. All right, I'm going with Killian Tilly. Who's fallen off, because of the injury. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind. But I think watch when Gonzaga wins the national title this year, and Killian Tilly is back healthy and making threes, and on that front line, and he's a deceptive athlete who can really stretch the floor. Perfect for today's NBA.
He's a deceptive athlete. He's white, basically.
He's a good athlete. Listen, he's playing next to friggin' Brandon Clark and Rui Hachimura. Like, it's not even fair. Like, if he's playing, next to, Shemek Karnowski, he wouldn't have to be a deceptive athlete. But now I got to call him deceptive because he's playing, with two of the elite athletes that ever played at Gonzaga. So I think Tilly will move off. I think he's got to get healthy. He's got to shake the rust off. But again, his skill set at his size, and you know how it is. You make a deep run like that in front of the world, and I think Gonzaga has a chance to win it all this year. That'll only help his draft stock as well.
Yeah, great shooter, great team defender, good rim protector because he's at Gonzaga, so of course he's a good rim protector.
All of it. Just a good player. Like in the 20s, he's a really good player because he's going to be a 10-year NBA player who, could be a rotation guy, could be a starter potentially for the right team and the right system. So I'm a big Killian Tilly guy. Well, listen.
And he's going to be the third highest forward taken on that Gonzaga team,
which
is the craziest thing.
Insane. They're going to have potentially 3 first-round picks, all frontline guys for Gonzaga and Mark Few. That's why I think they have a chance to win it all this year. Thank you for coming on, Sam Vecenie. Plug your podcast, plug everything you want to plug right now because that's what we do here.
Go to The Athletic, subscribe, read my work, read all of the great work over there by a number of writers about college basketball and the NBA. Go to your iTunes, whatever podcasting app that you're using to listen to this. Subscribe to the Game Theory podcast. We'll talk draft, we'll talk NBA, we'll talk college, just kind of a mix of everything.
See, I knew we were going to try to keep this to 40 minutes, but you and I, there's no way in hell we were going to be able to keep this to 40 minutes.
And you sent me a list of everything, and we went back and forth on a list. I shouldn't say you sent it to me, but we went back and forth, and we were we want to hit on this topic, we want to hit on that topic. I swear to God, I think we got to 5 of them. We got to half of them.
Yeah, we'll do this again. Maybe before March Madness, Sam and I will pull off part 2 of the NBA draft, and then we'll pull off part 3 before the draft. So we'll do this multiple times. Sam works as hard as his craft as anybody out there, and appreciate you coming on, my man.
Yep, anytime.
Thanks for joining us. Another edition of Good and Plenty in the books. Remember, every Tuesday, every Thursday, we got you covered with the best hoops podcast in America. All 3 levels. We talk NBA, we talk college. We'll start to talk some recruiting as well. Maybe the top high school players. We'll get somebody on that can be an expert in that field. Maybe Brian Snow, somebody like that. But again, go to wherever you listen to your podcasts and find Good and Plenty. Give us your review, iTunes, Stitcher. You can find us in CLNS Media. You can find me at Goodman Hoops on Twitter. You can also find me at watchstadium.com. Give us your reviews. Give us your feedback. We certainly want to use it. Thanks for my guest of the day, Sam Vecenie, talking all things NBA draft. We'll do it again for sure, like we said. He brings a lot to the table, unafraid to express his opinion. Thanks to my producer, Evan Valenti, and we will see you on Thursday. Good and Plenty.
Hello, I'm Dan Lothian, host of the Behind the Media podcast on the CLNS Media Network. Along with Jimmy Young, we dive into the biggest media headlines each week with honest, informed, and sometimes irreverent perspectives. It's not all serious. We deliver information and entertainment. As we like to say on Behind the Media, we find the interesting in media so you don't have to go searching for it. Listen to our podcast and get prepped for the next trip to the water cooler. Subscribe to Behind the Media wherever you get your podcast, or find us on www.clnsmedia.com.